At the bottom of our planet lies a frozen world so vast, so remote, and so cold that for most of human history, we treated it as eternal. Antarctica. A continent of ice larger than the United States and Mexico combined, holding around 60% of all the fresh water on Earth. For centuries, it seemed untouchable, a permanent white wilderness at the end of the world. But right now, that frozen world is changing, faster than almost anyone predicted. And the people who study it, the scientists who have devoted their lives to reading its ice, are deeply, genuinely worried. Not about some distant future, about what is happening right now beneath the surface of the ice and the sea. Let me show you what they are seeing, and why it matters to every single person watching this. First, understand the scale. Antarctica is not just a frozen desert. It is a sleeping giant, holding enough ice that, if all of it melted, global sea levels would rise by nearly 200 feet. Every coastal city on Earth would vanish beneath the waves. Now, no credible scientist expects all of that ice to melt anytime soon. But the giant is stirring. And the part of it that has scientists most alarmed sits in West Antarctica, and it goes by a name that tells you exactly how worried they are. They call it the Doomsday Glacier. Its real name is the Thwaites Glacier, and it is the widest glacier on Earth, an expanse of ice roughly the size of the state of Florida. For decades, it has acted as a giant cork, holding back an enormous portion of the West Antarctic ice sheet. But that cork is failing. For more than 40 years, warm ocean water has been melting Thwaites from below, eating away at it where it meets the sea. Since the early 1990s, the glacier has retreated by more than 12 miles. The volume of ice flowing from Thwaites and its neighbors into the ocean has doubled. And the researchers who have spent years studying it, a collaboration of more than 100 scientists, have reached a grim conclusion. The Thwaites Glacier is, in their words, pretty much doomed. The question is no longer whether it will collapse, but how fast. The most immediate concern is the glacier's eastern ice shelf, a floating plate of ice that acts as a brake, slowing the flow of the land-based ice behind it. That shelf is now riddled with cracks, weakening rapidly, and scientists believe it is poised to break apart. One leading glaciologist put it bluntly: the last bit of ice shelf in front of the glacier is set to disintegrate. We do not know exactly how it will break up, but it is definitely going to go. When that shelf fails, the glacier behind it will begin flowing into the sea far faster, and the melting will accelerate. It will not raise sea levels overnight, but it will set in motion a process that, over decades and centuries, will reshape the coastlines of the entire world. And the stakes are almost impossible to overstate. If the Thwaites Glacier is eventually lost entirely, scientists estimate it could raise global sea levels by around 2 feet. But because Thwaites acts as a cork holding back the much larger West Antarctic ice sheet, its collapse could trigger a chain reaction. In the worst-case scenario, that chain could ultimately contribute more than 10 feet of sea level rise. That would redraw the map of the world. Low-lying nations like Bangladesh, the Maldives, and the Pacific Island states would face catastrophic flooding. Coastal megacities, Miami, New York, Shanghai, Jakarta, Mumbai, would see far more frequent, far more devastating floods. Even nations with advanced defenses, like the Netherlands, would be pushed to their limits. And it is worth remembering, the water does not stay at the bottom of the world. It spreads across every ocean to every shore. And just recently, scientists uncovered a new, unsettling reason the glacier is melting faster than expected. In a study published in late 2025, researchers revealed that swirling underwater storms, fast-changing eddies of warm and cold water, are aggressively melting the ice shelves of Thwaites and its neighbor, the Pine Island Glacier. These storms, spinning up to 6 miles wide, churn warm water up against the vulnerable base of the ice. Over just 9 months, they were responsible for roughly 20% of the melting. And worse, they create a feedback loop. As they melt the ice, they add cold, fresh water to the ocean, which mixes with warmer water below, generating still more turbulence, still more melting. The warmer the planet gets, the stronger this cycle could become. And Thwaites is not alone. Right beside it sits the Pine Island Glacier, another colossal river of ice undergoing the very same assault from the warming sea. Together, the two glaciers drain a vast stretch of West Antarctica, and together, their fate may determine how quickly the seas rise. That is why, even now, teams of scientists are sailing to the edge of the world to study them, lowering instruments through thousands of feet of ice, even attaching sensors to elephant seals to record the temperature of the dark water beneath. But the glaciers are only part of what has scientists worried. Look at the sea ice, the frozen skin that surrounds the continent. In 2023, 2024, and again in recent years, Antarctic sea ice plummeted to record lows so extreme that researchers described them as mind-blowing, events so far outside the normal range that some began to ask whether the entire system had shifted into a new, more fragile state. Sea ice may seem unimportant, but it is the foundation of the entire Antarctic food web and the platform on which much of the continent's wildlife depends. When it vanishes, the consequences ripple outward to the krill, to the fish, to the whales, and to the penguins that crowd the ice each year to breed. Krill, the tiny shrimp-like creatures that swarm in their trillions beneath the ice, are the foundation of the entire Southern Ocean food web. They feed the whales, the seals, the penguins, the fish. And they depend, in turn, on the sea ice, which shelters their young and grows the algae they eat. Less ice means less krill. And less krill means the slow unraveling of one of the richest marine ecosystems on the planet. The vanishing of the ice is not a single event. It is the first domino in a chain that reaches, eventually, to every shore. And then there is a threat that has nothing to do with warming, and everything to do with the vulnerability of a place cut off from the rest of the world. In 2023 and 2024, a deadly strain of bird flu, H5N1, reached Antarctica for the first time. It arrived with migratory birds, squaws, traveling from South America, where the same virus had already killed hundreds of thousands of seabirds and tens of thousands of sea lions. For the penguins, the seals, and the other creatures of Antarctica, this was a catastrophe waiting to happen. They have never encountered this virus before. They have no immunity. Scientists warned that if it spread through the dense penguin colonies, it could trigger one of the largest ecological disasters of modern times. A frozen continent suddenly facing a microscopic enemy it had no defenses against. And the wildlife is already under siege. Emperor penguins, the icons of Antarctica, depend on stable sea ice to raise their young. When the ice breaks up too early, the chicks, not yet ready to swim, are swept into the sea and drowned. In recent years, scientists have recorded catastrophic breeding failures in several emperor penguin colonies, years where almost an entire generation was lost. Combine that with the warming waters, the vanishing ice, and now a deadly virus, and you have a wildlife crisis unfolding in slow motion at the bottom of the world, far from the eyes of most people. So what is the honest truth? The scientists are not crying wolf. The data is real, gathered by satellites, by ships, by instruments lowered through thousands of feet of ice. Antarctica is warming, its glaciers are retreating, its sea ice is shrinking, and its wildlife is under threat. And while experts are careful to say there is still uncertainty about exactly how fast Thwaites will collapse, about precisely how quickly the seas will rise, there is very little doubt that human-driven climate change is at the heart of what we are seeing. Warmer oceans, changed winds, shifting currents, all traced back to the greenhouse gases we have poured into the sky. The ice at the bottom of the world is telling us something, and it is telling us loudly. It is easy, when we hear news from a place so remote, to feel that it has nothing to do with us, that Antarctica is someone else's problem, a headline to scroll past on the way to something closer to home. But there is no someone else when it comes to the ocean. There is no far away when the water rises. The changes at the bottom of the world are not a warning for the future. They are a message, arriving now, addressed to all of us. This is not a story about a faraway place. It is a story about all of us. What happens in Antarctica does not stay in Antarctica. The water that melts from its glaciers will eventually lap at the shores of every continent. The wildlife that vanishes there is part of a web that connects to the entire ocean. And the scientists racing to understand these changes are not just studying ice. They are racing to give us a warning and a chance. Because if there is one thing the Doomsday Glacier teaches us, it is that the Earth's systems are connected, fragile, and far more sensitive than we ever imagined. And the choices we make right now will echo across centuries. The concern is so deep that some scientists have begun exploring ideas once considered science fiction. One team has proposed building a colossal underwater wall, stretching more than 50 miles across the seafloor, to block the warm ocean water from ever reaching the Thwaites Glacier. It is a desperate, extraordinary idea, a sign of just how far researchers are willing to go to buy the world time. Because Antarctica is governed by no single nation, protected by a treaty that sets it aside for peace and science. Even attempting such a thing would raise enormous political and ethical questions. But the very fact that serious scientists are thinking about it tells you something. They are no longer only studying the problem. They are searching for ways to fight it. So here's the question I want to leave you with. When you hear that the ice at the bottom of the world is melting faster than we feared, do you see a distant problem or a warning meant for you? I want to hear your answer. Drop it in the comments below. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe because the next truth we uncover about our planet might be the one we most need to face. Until next time, listen to the ice, respect the science, and never believe that what happens far away will never reach your shore. I am Arif Hassan, and this is AH History.